Hey, welcome to the Summit Host Hangout podcast where you'll learn how to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit. No influencer status necessary. I'm your host, Krista from Summit in a Box, and today in episode 139, I am so excited to bring in a special guest to talk about her awesome first summit results, as well as leveraging the power of relationships and why vanity metrics really don't matter. To give you some background information on our guest, she's an Instagram strategist that gets results. And back in her social media management days, she grew client accounts from hundreds to thousands of followers that actually resulted in real relationships and paying clients, which is what we're all about, right? She now has created 2 Instagram courses for mom entrepreneurs and even hosted a summit all about Instagram that was a huge hit. We're going to dive into that a little bit today. Without further ado, let's dive in and talk with Mia Lauren from the Social Joy Collective. Welcome, Mia. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Krista. I am so excited to be here.
I just love it when it comes full circle like this for someone who came and found me because he wanted to host a summit. You hosted an awesome summit, and now you're here with things to teach us, and it's just so fun. These are my favorite episodes. Before we dive into that, tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Yeah, sure. So I actually started in the online space. It's been about 2 years now. And I started kind of just out of sheer desperation. My husband is active duty military. And at the time he was deployed, and our oldest son had a lot of respiratory issues, and it required me taking off of work a lot. He was in and out of the hospital. And while I was fortunate to have a job that allowed me to work from home, it still required me to be present and be on. And I had no one. We were in San Diego. Anyone knows anything about military life, it's very hard to get a community. And so I had maybe one set of friends, and she had her own kids. And so I had no family, no one to support me. And I was constantly getting in trouble at work because of my PTO. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do I call in? What do I do? And so I totally accidentally stumbled on a Facebook ad. I started freelancing through this online course. It's called the Free Mama Movement. And that was my gateway in. And I began a virtual assistant business that transitioned into a social media management business. And that's where I really found myself. I feel like I had lost myself in this corporate world. I graduated college. I'd really forgotten what I was passionate about. And all of a sudden, when I jumped into this online space, I realized, oh my gosh, this is what I'm passionate about. Supporting other women, creating community. And so I began full-time freelancing as a social media manager. I transitioned just this past year to being a full-time Instagram strategist and coach. So I'm no longer freelancing, but now instead I help other women leverage their business online and get clients online. So that's kind of how I started. I now am the proud mom of 2 little boys. We live in Northern Illinois now. So my life has just completely shifted the last 3 years.
Oh my goodness. I was over here tearing up thinking about you started your business because you had to, and I can't imagine how stressful that would have been. But oh my gosh, how worth it is it now? So
totally.
Thank you so much for sharing that journey. I love it. Let's dive into your summit a little bit before we hit on the strategy pieces. We're going to talk about what made you decide to go ahead and host that first summit.
So kind of like I mentioned, when I came into this online space, I really realized, wow, I love women supporting women. I love bringing women together. And I actually grew up in church. And so if you know anything about Southern Baptists, is that they love their conferences, So I grew up going to conferences pretty much every other weekend, seriously all the time. And I remember one of my favorite leaders, her name is Beth Moore. She's still very prominent in the Christian world. And she would host these massive conferences for women. And I remember attending one and thinking, I want to do this. And so, of course, like I said, I lost sight of that vision. And all of a sudden I'm online. I'm like, wait a second, people are doing what I want to do, but they're doing it online. And my whole head exploded. And so I had this urge to do it, but when I realized what summits were and what virtual conferences were, I wasn't in a place where I was ready to do it. Well, then as I started transitioning to be an Instagram coach and be in that position of authority, I was like, okay, it's time. And so, man, I will tell you, there were people who were telling me, Mia, it's a lot of work. It's hard. Mia, do you want to do this? And I just couldn't shake the feeling that, yes, I wanted to do this. And so we were talking before the podcast interview, and I told you that I sat down with my husband, and I don't involve him in a lot of my business decisions, but I knew I had to on this one because I knew it was going to require him to hold the fort down at home. And so I sat down, and he's like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yes, yes." I just knew I had to. It's weird. It was just a pull.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love it. And I know exactly what you mean. So, what kind of results did you see from that? Are you glad you followed that pull and the feelings you had?
So glad. And you know what? I will tell you, even coming off the heels of this, it was a lot of work. Yes, everyone was absolutely right. But even by the end of the day, I was like exhausted. And then I'm laying there on the couch, like so tired. I'm like, all right, when am I going to do this again? Like, I
Yes.
was like so ready to jump in again. Oh my gosh, the results were insane. First of all, I think probably the most unexpected benefit was the relationship with the speakers. Like all of these speakers who I admire and just, oh my gosh, like these are incredible people who are experts in their own niche. And they came and honored me with their presence, and I grew a relationship with them. That was so cool. And as you know, like I'm very much a fan of relationships and the power of those relationships. So that in and of itself was a very unexpected benefit. I did not expect the feedback that I got. I mean, I received a message. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get emotional. I received a message the following week that just said, "Mia, your summit was so much more than Instagram stories and reels. It was literally a week of life development, and it has changed my life." And I was like, holy cow. If that is just one person's life who I've changed, then it was worth it. Like, and I mean, that was not the only time I heard that. I kept getting so much feedback that it was one of the best summits that they've ever attended. Speakers told me it's one of the best summits that they were ever a part of. So that was a cool feeling. I mean, and even the sales, like I had put you got walked us through our goals, right? And I was like, all right, we'll see if this happens. And I remember you going through our summit review and being like, yeah, those goals are doable. And so the whole time I'm like, she said the goals are doable, Mia. She said the goals are doable. And so when I saw what the sales were at the end, I nearly fell over in my seat. Like I was so blown away. So I mean, just so many good things came from this event.
Oh my gosh, I love hearing this so much. And even just without any numbers at all, the relationships and the feedback
Yeah.
are worth it in themselves. And I feel like you don't realize that until it happens.
Yeah.
And I feel like it surprises me every single time I host a summit. It just like hits me all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, these silly numerical goals I set in the beginning, they don't matter at all when compared to this. So I love that you saw
Yes.
that.
I mean, I'm still having people tell me, like, hey, Mia, I'm actually going back through some of the presentations, which is what you not instructed us, but guided us to communicate, which I had never even thought of. I've never been to a summit where someone said, hey, don't come to everything, pick and choose. And when you taught us that, I was like, that is so good. And so I push
Yeah.
that home because I know so many women in my community get shiny object syndrome so fast. And so I was just honing in on please don't go to please do not go to every presentation. And so now I'm hearing people come back like, hey, I took your advice. I'm implementing this. And now I'm going through some of the other presentations, just like you said. And again, shivers, like, so
I
good.
love that. So after going through this and you were sitting there in the beginning with all these people telling you, I don't know, Mia, that's a lot of work. Are you sure you want to do this? What would you say to anyone else who's struggling with those things, struggling with the time, hearing people in their circle say those things to them?
Get Summit in the box. I'm not even kidding. I had a lot of people reach out to me after and were like, hey, you pulled this summit off so well. Can I pick your brain? And I'm like, hey, yeah, sure, you can pick my brain. But in full transparency, like being totally honest, go to Krista. Like, and I even had one of the girls in my community say, like, hey, my client wants to do it. She saw what you did. She wants to do it. And I said, cool, totally happy to talk with you. But first, you want to check out Krista. I honestly don't know that I could have done it as well. I think a lot of times people struggle is because one, they have to figure out all of these tiny, tiny pieces that
Mhm.
you don't even think about until you get there. And what I loved is that a lot of the time when I was implementing the things for my summit, I had already gone through the groundwork of thinking through all of this stuff. Like I
Yeah.
knew what I was going to put in place when I was putting it in place. And I think a lot of times people are having to think about it and implement it at the same time. And that's where they get caught up. I think a lot of times people struggle with their messaging, people struggle
Mhm.
with their promotion, and I didn't have to worry about any of that. Like I literally had a plan and I'm like, okay, Mia, like you've got your dates in the calendar, just like get it done. So honestly, I mean, if anyone were to be thinking about a summit, I would just tell them like, hey, go to this resource. Like I know that my summit would not have been successful without your guidance. I really did everything you told me to. And that's why it was a success.
Oh, thank you. And it's like it's just so cool to see like the resources we create. We put our heart and soul into them,
Yeah.
and it's really cool to see someone take them and just use them to the fullest extent and knock it out of the park. So, I have you to thank for that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing all that about your summit. It's so fun to hear and to like see your excitement. I wish you guys could see Mia talking about her summit too. It is so fun. But let's switch gears and talk about vanity metrics versus relationships on a platform like Instagram. And I'm just going to let you loose here. So, why do you believe that it's not numbers that are important, but relationships that are important?
Totally. Oh my gosh. I am just so passionate about this. I mean, we live in a world that is digital, right? Like, I mean, especially, when we're feeling this, it's 2021. Last year we went through COVID. Everything shifted to digital. And so now with this huge, I mean, it's always been a focus on digital, but now even more. And people are looking at your Instagram, they're looking at, your LinkedIn, your YouTube, your Pinterest, whatever, and they want to see that you have an audience. However, if you can turn around and say, yes, my audience might be XYZ, but let me tell you how engaged they are. Let me tell you how bought in they are. That can make all the difference. And I always use this story of an influencer who has millions of followers. And I don't remember her name off the top of my head. I could have pulled it up, but I don't remember. You can Google it. She has millions of followers. She launched her own t-shirt company and she failed to make less than 100 sales of her own t-shirts. Like millions of followers, less than 100 sales. I'm sorry. For me, I want someone who has 2,000 followers and can get me 100 butts in the seat. Like that's what I want. And so I'm just super passionate about it because I believe that you can have a platform of 200 people. You can have a platform of 300 people. And if you are speaking to the right people, if they are there to hear what you have to say, if they are bought in, those 200 people are going to be far more valuable because they are hot and ready to go and they trust you. They believe that whatever you bring to them, okay, you recommend this summit in a box? Cool. We're going to go check her out. Versus someone who makes it their business to, I mean, we see that, right? We see people
Mm-hmm.
constantly piddling stuff and we're like, do you really like this? Or did they just pay you because you have 200,000 followers? Like you have to
Mm-hmm.
question it. And so I truly believe that when your audience trusts you, if you have an audience that is less than, whatever, you don't have that K behind your name on Instagram, but they're bought in, that is far more valuable. That's going to lead to way more clients, way more sales than anything else.
That is so true. And that is like a powerful example you gave too about the person with millions of followers
Yeah.
that couldn't sell. Like, oh, that hurts. That hurt her when that happened.
I mean, it was embarrassing. She had to release a statement. And I mean, I had a screenshot of the statement at one point because I mean, that's devastating for her.
Yeah.
But what a good lesson for all of us.
Yes. Yeah. So how do we go about building those relationships, engaging our people, whether it's, a couple hundred or a couple thousand?
Man, I know this word gets so overused, but I truly do believe it comes down to being authentic. And what I mean by being authentic is not like, oh my gosh, I'm going to share every single problem I have in the world and I'm just blah all the time. But I think it's just like showing up consistently and being honest about what's happening in your life. It's about reaching out to the people who are following you, reaching out to the people who I mean, man, for me, when someone follows me, like that's such an honor. Like, thank you for letting me into your world. Thank you for allowing me into your space. And so, treating that person following you like a real person and just keeping it real. I think after my summit, I shared a very vulnerable post about in the weeks leading up to the summit. It was like the sky fell in on me. Like, it literally felt my life was a series of unfortunate events. And I shared a photo on my Instagram of me on the bathroom floor crying because I had just come off the heels of the successful summit. Everyone was telling me, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. And I said, hey, listen, I want to keep it real. Like, it was hard getting to this point. I'm so proud of what happened. But I'm going to be honest, I forgot my husband's birthday the month before. Like, it was not a good place for me to be. And I realized I had to wake up and make huge change. I mean, I made huge changes in my life after that. And I just wanted to be super honest about that. And then I had people coming to me and being like, Mia, I didn't know you feel that way. And I want to thank you for being like, I showed the human side of myself and people wanted to see that and they connected with me. I'm
Mhm.
having more conversations in my DMs because of that one post than because of
Yep.
my summit. So I think it's about just showing that you're human, knowing what your ideal audience, like what they struggle with, and like meeting them where they struggle. My audience is moms. So we can all relate to like being on the bathroom floor crying at some point, right? Like we've been there with our kids and with our partners and with our businesses. So meeting your audience where they are and just it's just again, it just all comes down to like what would you do like if these people weren't online? Like would you ignore them and just be like, "Oh, they're just a follower of mine?" No, like you'd go up to them
Mhm.
at a party and be like, "Hey, how's it going? How's the fam?" You know, treating these online relationships like real people because they are real people.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I'll just like dig a little deeper then. So like what if someone has been focusing on the wrong thing? So they have been, we'll just go with Instagram
Yeah.
because that is your specialty. Like if they've been building their Instagram following off of the idea that all that matters is their follower
Yeah.
count, what shifts can they make to start moving back in the right direction, whether it's with their content, with their mindset, whatever you think that needs to be?
Totally. So first, I would like to really recognize and just validate that some people, they are just wanting the vanity metrics. Like they may have like a
Mhm.
really engaged Facebook group and they really just care about that 10K on Instagram. And if so, like, okay, cool. Just acknowledge that and know that your engaged platform is elsewhere. So one, identifying like what are my goals with Instagram? Are my goals on Instagram to get an engaged following and to get clients and to get people that really matter to me? Or am I after those vanity metrics? So if you are
Mhm.
like, no, I want clients, I want real relationships, it doesn't matter how many people I have, as long as I have a full book of business and like a full pipeline, then what I would say is mindset is everything. Like you have to reevaluate everything you do. Why are you posting what you're posting? It goes back to like your why in your business. Like what is important to you? Getting really clear on your ideal client. So like you don't want everyone to follow you. I am not for everyone. I 100% recognize that. There are people who do not like me at all. Cool. That's okay. Like, be blessed. I've got my own crew and they love me, you know? And so just recognizing, like, I mean, that's a mindset shift. I'm a huge people pleaser. So when I had to, like, come to terms with that, it was hard. But coming to terms with the fact that you only want to attract that one person that you are selling to. And who is that? Getting really clear on what they struggle with, what their fears are, what their joys are, and then creating content around that. So, one mindset, one getting clear on your why, getting clear on your ideal client, and then being honest with yourself about why you're showing up online, being honest with the content you post. I mean, it's scientifically proven that we get a hit of dopamine every time we get a like. So, acknowledging that and then coming back to, okay, am I posting this for those likes? Does it make me feel good? Okay, yes, it makes me feel good when people like it, but is it serving my community? Is it educating my community? Is it opening the door to create deeper relationships? And really evaluating like, why am I showing up online? And coming from a place of service. When you serve, and you're showing up to serve, I mean, it just follows that you're going to get people who are wanting to come into your world and work with you. I think that's probably one of the things that I see a lot of people miss the mark on is they want to land their clients, but they're not offering any value just to offer value and just to be of service. So a couple of different things. I feel like I kind of went over a lot there, but that's what I would say.
I love that, and I have seen that pay off for myself over the last few months, and I don't remember what the switch was for me that I suddenly flipped. But like the virtual summit space is like kind of slimy. Like a lot of the people that teach about virtual summits are like pretty gross about it. And because of that, that doesn't align with where I'm at,
Yeah.
but I've never addressed it. I've always just like played it really safe and stayed away from, of course, teaching people those slimy tactics, but I never came out and said, this is gross. Why are we doing that? And maybe it was like I think it might have been that I got brave with an Instagram post or a reel or something like that and got good feedback. It's like, okay, let's keep going with this. And I did, like, instead of just like trying to focus on what I thought people wanted to know about summits, I got, like you said, authentic about it. And I was like, I think this is disgusting. Let's talk about this. And people loved it.
Yes.
And like, I feel so much closer with my people. It is so much more fun to be posting for me now because I don't care if someone doesn't like it. I have this guy that is pretty nasty when it comes to the bro marketing strategies. I'll send you over to him.
The bro marketer over there.
Yes, exactly. So I love that you brought this up.
Oh my gosh, I love that you recognize that shift. And getting polarizing, man, there is no faster way to tell who's your people than coming out with a polarizing statement like, hey, most summits are slimy.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fun to see how much harder they go for you then when you're willing to do that. Like, I don't know. It's really cool. So I love that you brought that up. One other question I have for you, like, where did you see this pay off with hosting your summit, focusing on the connections and being authentic over how many numbers you had on different platforms?
I would say probably through a good chunk of it. I mean, talking about, the sky falling in on me, like pretty much like leading up on my stories, I was very honest. When I fell down the stairs and I got a concussion on my head, I showed up on my stories and I'm like, great, it's 2 weeks before my summit. I have a concussion. And then my basement flooded the week before and like showed up on my stories. And so, just keeping it real, like I don't have my life together over here. People were able to they were cheering me on. They wanted my success because I'm constantly cheering my community on. They did the same to me. And so I think people were very excited, like because all of this buildup had happened, not just the promotion, but like all of this drama surrounding my summit, all of that buildup had happened. So when the summit came, it was like, oh, this is what she's been working on. So I think that piece, but then during the actual summit, I mean, I was super, super involved. And I had a few people tell me that they never even realized when they attended a summit, they didn't even know who the host of the summit was. And I know you had said that before, but I mean, I was in every single presentation. I was in the chat box. I was going live multiple times a day. I was having conversations. Someone tagged me. I was quick to, repost them on Instagram and say, hey, hope you're enjoying the summit. Like I was quick to not just share, but like, how are you? Like, thank you for being here, establishing those relationships. So I think that really paid off too. I mean, I had a lot of sales. I mean, the last few days of the summit, I was not expecting that. With the price increase, I was like, no way. Like, but I know, again, you had said that you expect it, and it's true. And I had so many people even telling me like they fought themselves on getting it. Like, I don't need another thing. I don't need another thing. But because of how excited I was, because of how excited other people were, and just like that real connection, they're like, okay, yeah, I guess whatever else I've been missing on, I need to get in on that too. So I would say that paid off, just the power of relationships paid off even in the actual summit itself.
Yeah, you made people want to give you money just by being a human. Imagine that.
Isn't that mind-blowing? What a concept.
Oh my gosh. And I feel like it ties back into what you talked about in the beginning with when I asked like what your results looked like, is the first things you talked about were relationships and feedback. Those were your biggest things. And then you like briefly touched on, that the numbers looked good as well. And I feel like that just like is so in line with what you're saying here. Like it all just comes together when you are being authentic about things and just feels so much better. So what is the biggest takeaway you would like listeners to get from what we talked about today, or one action you want them to take, something like that?
So a couple of different things. One, if you're thinking about a summit, do it. I really do feel like I didn't know that I was capable of something like this on such a big scale. I mean, I had no idea almost 1,000 people would register. Like, whoosh, and I shattered some insane limiting beliefs, like insane limiting beliefs. And so if you don't believe that you can do it, you need to go do it. Like you need to go shatter those limiting beliefs. So that's the one thing. And then the other thing is just don't be afraid to take, like, I say this all the time, and I wish I had like a less corny way to say it, but like, don't be afraid to take messy action. Like, it's so true. Like, I probably started the summit planning 3 or 4 times,
Mhm.
and then I would choke up and be like, no, 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 I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then when I finally was like, I've got to freaking do this, I took a ton of messy action. There was a couple of times I was behind on my deadlines for like whatever we have in ClickUp for our summit deadlines or whatever. There's a couple times I was behind and I'm like, nope, doing it anyway, doing it anyway. And for like an Enneagram 3, like a very perfectionist person, like it killed me because I'm like, I need to be on time. But life happens. And so don't be afraid to just do it messy and figure it out later. So those would be my 2 things. And then, of course, join Krista's Summit in the Box and do the VIP. It is so worth it to have Krista's eye on all of your stuff.
Oh, thank you. I loved being able to have my eye on all your stuff. It was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all this today. This was such a fun conversation. Where can people go to learn more about you, what you offer, connect with you, all the things?
Yeah, so obviously I'm on Instagram, so you can actually follow me there. It's at Mrs. Lauren, MIALAUREN. My website is the Social Joy Collective, and I actually have a freebie that I'd love to share with your audience if that's okay.
Yes.
So if anyone struggles with showing up on Instagram stories and like making them look cool, and you're wondering like, gosh, how did those people do that on their stories? I have a list of over 20 juicy tips and tricks you can quickly and easily implement. And so you can find that at thesocialjoycollective.com/juicy, JUICY.
I love that. We will link to that in the show notes. I want to go grab it, that's for sure. Thank you so much for being here, Mia. This was great.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Thank you everyone so much for tuning into this episode. I hope you are like refreshed and hearing that like being a person can have such a big payoff in all aspects of in hosting a summit as well as just your business as a whole. For show notes, resources, and links to connect with Mia, head to summitHostHangout.com/139. In the next episode, we'll be chatting with another guest about growing a summit audience without paid ads, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Now go out and take action to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit.